Hello, Doolin friends, Doolin Church. It's good to see you. It's me, James Henry, your pastor, coming to you on this Thursday at noon for another Doolin Weekly Moment, Doolin Weekly podcast. I have been working on a new uh, series to talk about here. You know, if you've listened to me enough in the last year and change, that when I talk about Jesus, it's less about believe, although I'm not attempting to put down believing. I talk about following because that's what Jesus always invited. Follow me. And it's because I think he modeled for us what a path is meant to look like. What does it look to follow Jesus in our everyday lives? He modeled some practices, some ways of living that I think can help us in our everyday lives, the way we approach our lives, the way we engage with other people, the way we engage ourselves, and how we engage God. And so, if we think about the Jesus model, I'm going to talk about some different things that he did, uh, and and how we might seek to model those things in our own lives. This week, I want to begin with something that seems quite obvious and something that most of us think we do pretty well already, which is to be where we are. Now, what I mean by being where we are is actually being fully present where we are. Now, you could say to me, James, wherever I am, that's where I am. And often that's exactly true about your body. But how many times are you in a conversation and your mind wanders, or you're on the road to one place and your mind is already on the place you're going to and how you're going to handle that, while you're actually in a car on the road and sometimes driving. So you're not fully present and you're letting your mind do driving on sort of autopilot. And sometimes you let your mind do conversations on autopilot. And sometimes you pray in autopilot. Uh, a case in point, it would be very easy to pray the Lord's Prayer, which you may have prayed a million times if you've been doing it all your life, or you may have just begun to learn how to pray it. But as you've practiced over and over again, it becomes sort of rote and it becomes a pattern, and you do it on autopilot rather than listen for what the words of the prayer are actually saying. So, what Jesus did, what we see him model over and over and over again in the gospel message, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which are all stories about the life of Jesus, is that when he stopped to talk to someone, that person held his attention. He was in that moment, whether it was Zacchaeus up in a tree just trying to get a look at Jesus, whether it was an unnamed person at the side of the road who called out to him, or a person that we've named Bartimaeus, which literally means son of Timaeus, whether his name is unknown and he was the son of Timaeus, or whether he was named son of Timaeus, I don't know, but Bartimaeus at the side of the road, each time that Jesus heard them call out, touch his robe, knew that they were present, he stopped, and when he was talking to them, he was fully in the moment. Now, I want to say this practice of Jesus, it sounds like it's the easiest one, doesn't it? You know, wherever we go, there we are. Our bodies are there, but our minds are always looking for distractions, always looking for things to wander off on. What's next on my list? You might be in a conversation with a good friend or just an acquaintance or someone asking you a question, and you're almost wanting to look at you can feel yourself wanting to look at your watch. Sometimes you do, to see if you aren't supposed to be somewhere else, taking you out of truly listening to the person in front of you. Now, I'm going to combine those two together, although we could do them separately, and that is be where you are, listening Now, part of the listening is if you're out for a walk by yourself, are you hearing the bird song? Are you hearing the other sounds that are going on, or have you drowned them out? Have you put headphones in your ears? So many of us travel through life with headphones so that when we're in between places we need to be, we can be productive or we can be distracted by the music or the podcast or and you could be listening to this podcast while you're on a walk. I'm suggesting to you that at least on occasion, wherever you are, just listen to where you are. If you've chosen to sit outside to eat your lunch, you listen to what's going on. You can also begin to listen to your body, whether that's a physical listening with your ears or whether that is simply being aware of what's going on inside of you, particularly when you're alone. You know, that growling of your stomach is trying to tell you something. That tightness in your shoulders, if you pay attention enough, is trying to tell you something. The tiredness in your eyes, the sense that they are dried out, that's telling you something. Are you listening? Now, when you're with another person or with other persons, our propensity in modern culture is to listen in order to respond. We're listening for the little hooks in what the person is saying so we can figure out how to respond on our own. What are we going to say in response? Rather than actually try to listen deeply to what the person is saying and not worrying about what the response will be. That will arise when it's time for it to arise, when the other person in front of you takes a break, pauses, stops, asks a question, gives you that inquisitive look for you to be able to respond. Until that happens, can you really listen deeply to what the person is saying? Not just with their words, but particularly if you're in the presence of the other person, what is their body saying to you? Are they listening to you when you speak back? Are they saying that they're fine, but you see the worry or the furrowed brow in their face, in the frown in their mouth? Are you sensing that what they're saying is not in coherence with what their body is saying, what their body language is saying? If you are fully present in the moment, then you get to listen for all that's happening in there. How many times have you, if you've been to a Bible study or a small group session where you're discussing a book, where you have your point that you're just looking forward to a spot, looking for a spot where you can drop it in to the conversation, as opposed to listening to what the other person is saying about what they encountered? It may make your need to say something moot. You don't need to, it's being aware of what's motivating you to be fully present. I don't know. It seems like on the outside, Jesus' mind wasn't wandering. Maybe his mind had the propensity to wander too. After all, we think of him as the Son of God as well as the Son of Man. We have all these titles we attach to him. Who's to say that his mind didn't have a propensity to wander too? But his practice was to really be present in the moment, to really listen to the person, to listen for those voices that everyone else discounted, and to stop and be present in that moment. There are ways to recognize within ourselves that our minds are wandering, that our hearts are wandering, that we're more concerned about our schedule than we are about being present in the moment. And speaking as someone who gets caught up, on a Sunday morning right after worship, there are a lot of people that, I look around and I see oftentimes people I haven't seen before, or people that I haven't seen in a long time, and I want to get over to talk to them. However, someone else stops me on the way. And, perhaps whatever they have to say is very important. It certainly is important to them, and I take it seriously. So I might not get to the person that I see out of the corner of my eye escaping from the back of the sanctuary. Some of you are really good escapers, by the way. But as they're escaping, I have multiple choices inside of me. and that is to let them go, to let them go, and to stop and talk to the person who has pulled me aside and wants to talk. Now, if you're one of those people, I think that's great. There are a number of people who like to talk to me regularly, and I love talking to those folks. But if you see me with sort of a beeline in my face and you still feel strongly that you need to stop me, I want you to stop me because I want to talk to you. But know also that when I stop to talk to you, I'm really going to be present with you. I'm going to do my very best not to see the first time visitor that is in the corner of my eye. Who is getting out before I get to speak to them, or maybe someone who looked distraught during my sermon. Perhaps it was the delivery of the sermon, of course, that's always possible. But maybe something I brought up was something they need to talk about. Now, I can rely on them if they really want to talk to me, that they could call me later in the week. They could send me an email later in the week and say, can we get together and have a cup of coffee? And if you're one of those people, please do that. Please do that, because wherever I am, I try to be in that place, because I think that's one of the most important things Jesus modeled for us, being where we are. If you ever note that I look distracted while you're trying to talk to me, I want you to call me out for it. I do. I have no problem with you calling me out. It might ding me for a second in there, but it will also help me. It will also help me, because I want to learn to be more like Jesus and follow his path. And part of the work of the church together as a community is helping each other model that following Jesus the best way they can, as closely as they can. What does that look like in daily life? So this has been our first opportunity to talk about being where we are. Maybe the first thing you need to do is just take notice today. If you're watching on Thursday or whatever day you're watching, today is the day. Try to take notice of the moment when you find your mind wandering. Are you sitting with a friend talking to them at lunch and at the same time looking at your phone? You're clearly not with the person across the table from you. You can tell yourself you are, but you're really escaping from the moment with your friend across the table to look at your phone, to look for things that can distract you in the moment. People tell you you can do multiple things. Science has proven over and over again, there's no such thing as true multitasking. You are simply dividing yourself. You're dividing your attention across a lot of things rather than honing your attention. And if anything Jesus taught, it was to hone our attention. So just pay attention. When do you find yourself wondering? What do you do about the wondering? Can you let go of the wandering mind and come back to the person? And if you miss something, say, I'm sorry, something happened in my mind. A question popped up that I'd forgotten about, and I missed that last sentence you said. Could you say it to me again? You may think that you don't want to hurt the other person's feelings, but they're building what they're telling you on what came before. So you might want to hear that thing. These are all just suggestions as possibilities. I don't expect to be exhaustive in the weeks of the series where we try to talk about the Jesus path. We're just going to talk about some of the things I've observed and some of the ways that I try to practice them, and maybe they might be helpful to you. Thanks so much for joining me. If this has been helpful to you, you can certainly listen to it again, but you can also share it with your friends. Thanks for being you, Doolin Church. Go out and be you in the world and practice being where you are. Thanks so much for joining me today. Until the next time.